I went through hell. I went through literal hell, just rediscovering who I was, and a lot of questioning myself, questioning decisions, reliving some painful memories and decisions that I made, and all kinds of things that just a lot of soul searching. And some people are not up for that. Some people find it hard to do that, and they find themselves soothing themselves with some kind of habit that ends up being a deteriorating factor for them health wise. So um, it would just be, you know, I just hope for him that he's able to make that transition because, you know, the problems outside the octagon, they take on a different complexion when you're no longer a pay-per-view star.
He is a legend of sport and one of my oldest friends in the industry. It is always my great pleasure to speak to the legend himself, Rashad Evans. Rashad, welcome in and thanks for doing this. I know this isn't the fight week you were intending on, but I appreciate you still stopping by to chat with me.
Man, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, buddy, and catch up. Yeah, you're right. This is not the fight week that I was expecting, but such is life. When you've been in the game as long as I have, you understand that there's these setbacks, and when there's these setbacks, you just gotta roll with the punches. Eventually, something works out.
Absolutely. So I know you put out this statement a few days ago. You and Rampage were set to box on Saturday night. The event kind of falls apart. I don't know what contractually you can or cannot say, but what can you give us any kind of detail, like what actually happened? Because this was a pretty big card. I mean, they had a lot of big names on there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the card is I think they're still trying to do the card and trying to still make it so that it can happen. It just kind of like negotiations kind of just fell apart as far as like, things that me and Rampage were promised going into the fight. It didn't get fulfilled, and we tried to work around it and make it so that it could happen, but it just wasn't enough time to make everybody happy. So the party just kind of decided that it would be better if we just didn't do it. And it was disappointing. For one, this is something that we built up for a while, and it's something that we really got in shape to do. We weren't going to go in there and screw around. This is something that we both got focused for, and it was a good focusing thing for him and I both. He's in great shape right now. I got in great shape as well, so it was something that we were really looking forward to doing.
Yeah, can I imagine again? You don't have to get into details. Does some of it has to come down to financials, right? Like that's always going to be part of it because again, you and Rampage are going to sell this card. They're going to sell the card around your names. There's got to be a financial component to it.
Yeah, it's definitely a financial component. That's where things just kind of went off the rails a little bit, and we weren't able to be made whole and appeased before it was time to really take the next step and really know that everything was going to be taken care of once the fight was done. Last thing we wanted to do was put ourselves in a situation where we weren't going to get the money that we were promised after the fight is done. There's been some stories about other fighters that participated in boxing matches and not receiving anywhere close to the money that they negotiated. So we put in a few, safety measures in order to make sure that we're hitting certain milestones and that we're able to make that mark when it's when it's time. And we just weren't able to come to that agreement.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you remember. You're referencing there. Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal had a fight, and then 2 weeks later, Nate Diaz files a lawsuit because like I said, promises kept, promises made. When it's contractual, you got to get paid, and when it doesn't happen, you're providing for a family. You got, like this is your livelihood.
Yeah,
they're not going to pay you. You're not going to go in there and take punches if you're not actually getting paid what you're supposed to get paid.
No, especially from that big old heifer. You know what I'm saying? That joke is no joke. So. Yeah, it was something that we just wanted to make sure that learning from that situation and making sure that we were taken care of and making sure that everything was all met and accounted for before we even step into the ring to fight. So it just wasn't able to get done in time. And they're still putting this car together. Things are still happening. So I don't know if there's a solution to it and they come with something. in the last minute ditch effort, then we might be able to make something happen. But as of right now, it's just not something that we can go through with.
Yeah. Now, can I imagine? Because I remember when we talked last year, when you first kind of broke the news and said, "I'm coming back. We're going to do the boxing match." You were just kind of figuring out timing of it. So we all kind of got excited. Then the announcement got made, and everyone's kind of getting like, again, assuming it doesn't happen on Saturday, do you still have a desire, whether it's another promoter, another venue, whatever it is? Like, do you still have a desire, or because again, you have to kind of put your life on pause to a certain extent
Yeah.
to get ready. Like, you do a lot of other things, so you kind of have to stop doing that to get ready for a fight. So, like, if this doesn't happen Saturday, do you kind of have to regroup, or do you still have a desire to do the boxing match with Rampage?
I'm going to regroup, but I definitely do have a desire to do the boxing match with Rampage. You know, it was a lot of fun, devoting myself and really just getting back into the fighting mindset. Since I stepped away from fighting, I've been busy doing other things, developing myself outside of the fight game, which is all very important. But at the same time, there's a certain itch that needs to be scratched, and I still got it. I still have that feeling inside of me. And, before I totally relent to being an elder statesman. I at least want to feel it one more time, or at least a couple times. It's been a gift from God to be able to compete and be able to have the opportunities that I have, and I take nothing for granted. And I'm grateful as hell that I'm able to still be in this kind of conversation. But it would have been nice to be able to compete. And if the opportunity does present itself and we do find ourselves with another promotion that can make it happen, then I'm all for it. But it's just about making sure that both of us are taken care of, and it's something that makes sense to both of us as well.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to knock the promoters who are promoting this card, but this just seems like there'd be a lot of people out there who would jump at the chance to put you and Rampage on a card. Like, I think of like what Misfits Fighting does. Like, they do cards here
Yeah.
in the UK, and it's like, how would you not jump on having two guys like you? Or I don't know, what kind of Jake Paul cards are going on right now, but like, who wouldn't want Rashad and Rampage on a card like that? Like, you want to sell pay-per-views, you want to sell events. That's a
Right.
big fight to put on there. So I'm just saying, like, I gotta imagine if this promotion doesn't get it done, someone's gonna step up.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's what we hanging our hat on. We know that there's a lot of promotions that really fit into this space and really fit into what we do, and it's really a good thing that the influencer market has opened up the way that it has, and really, it's been really received by the fans, and it's something that is fun. It really has brought a lot of people to boxing just from a different understanding of it, as far as just it's not the boxing that your dads and everybody was talking about. But it's still boxing, and it kind of gets your appetite wet if you just don't understand, or you're not a fan of boxing. A lot of people are just MMA fans and don't really like boxing. But once you really start to really dig into the sweet science, it really grabs a hold of you, and you just realize what a beautiful sport it is. And I've been able to have the pleasure to really just dig my heels into it and really start to look at it with new eyes myself, just from being able to have the past year or so just getting ready just to fight somebody.
Yeah, now I know you and Rampage have so much history dating back a lot of years. This is a great rivalry, but also listen, this is business. Can I
Yeah.
imagine, like, at some point you actually had to talk to Rampage, because I'm sure he's probably on the same page where you are, where it's like, hey, like, we may be rivals, we're about to go in there and punch each other in the face, but again, we both got to get paid here. So can I imagine that, like, Rampage kind of shares your disappointment that this isn't happening?
Yeah, we had dialogue and we talked about it. We just made sure that you know um, we were both okay with stepping away from this promotion, and potentially serving it up for another time. And like it or not, he is my adversary when it comes to fight night. But there's also this symbiotic relationship that happens along the way when you have an opponent like Rampage. Him and I have a very special thing together, being the fact that we have really good chemistry together, and we have really good fight chemistry together. So that's somebody that you really want to stick with, because um, it makes fighting that much funner. You know what I'm saying? He's somebody that I don't have to struggle to get motivated to fight, and I think it's the same thing with me. So it's one of those fights that make training for the fight and everything about the fight that much more enjoyable, because I've been in camps where I didn't even want to be there. I didn't want to, I begrudged it. I really couldn't get motivated. And with a guy like Rampage and with the history we have, it's just automatic.
Yeah. Now you were in the thick again. I remember we talked last year. You were getting ready to start your camp. You were getting ready for this boxing match, and again, you have to put a lot of stuff on hold. You do analyst work. You do a lot of other stuff outside of fighting. And again, you're not in the middle of your fight career right now, so you kind of put everything on hold, get in shape, get in boxing shape, do all these kind of things. As you said, you do have to kind of hit the pause button right now. And again, maybe someone will come in, last minute and get this done for Saturday. But just assuming it doesn't happen, do you have to kind of like shut it down and then maybe plan 3 or 4 months down the road? Because I imagine you don't want to just keep training and not knowing I got a fight day, right? Because you got other things going on. You can't just because you're not you're not 10 fights into your career right now. Like you got other things going on. You can't just keep doing a training camp with no idea when you're fighting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. Life goes on if this doesn't happen for the short term, and I'll put my training on the back burner as far as just doing it 2 or 3 times a week, and really start to put my focus on my other businesses and really start to do other things outside of the fight game. And doing other things outside the fight game has been one of my biggest things for me transitioning and to the rest of my life. I love fighting. Fighting has done for me so much for me, and it's created some amazing opportunities. But at the end of the day, I do have to look at the fact that I have to develop myself in all the areas of my life, and I do want to do other things outside of fighting. So being able to get back to my life and being able to get back to things that are not fight related is something that I desperately need to do after whatever happens.
Yeah, now I know this is going back a little ways because I know we still chat pretty regularly, and I remember at one point I think it was when you had your MMA fight, you came back and afterwards you were kind of deciding what was I going to do next, and you mentioned boxing as a possibility. You said, hey, maybe one of these influencer fights, I would be open to that. This fight kind of felt like the perfect microcosm, you and Rampage coming back together, but again, the world is out there where these guys are out there. Do you have any interest in if somebody came to you and said, hey, we would like you to fight, but maybe, there's another guy there like a Dylan Dennis or a KSI or one of those guys, would you still be open to that even if it's not Rampage?
Yeah, I'll still be open to that for sure. That's one of those fights that kind of really sparked my interest into wanting to get back into training and get back into boxing. I'm watching these guys and I'm like, oh man, I can beat these guys. And, it's really motivated me to want to get back in shape. But I also understand, after doing it for the last year or so, that it's a lot harder than it looks. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot harder than it looks. And, it's giving me a lot more respect for the Jake Pauls and the KSIs and these guys who jump into the space who really have started to make a name for themselves just because of the fact that, boxing is a little something different. There's so many different nuances in the sport and little things and little adjustments that you can make that make you that much better or that much worse. And just being able to figure that out and dial it in has been amazing because in MMA, I've been doing MMA and I've been doing boxing in my MMA for so long. But, even with the boxing and MMA, it's a totally different ball of wax because of the range and where you allow yourself to be and how low you can go and all the different things you can do defensively speaking to get away from punches that you really you really can't do in MMA. So it's been really fun to just kind of make those adjustments.
Yeah, I remember after you had that fight in Eagle FC, and you said at that point, you're like, maybe I'll fight again, maybe I won't. You were kind of, and even going into that, when I told you, I said, Rashad, you could never fight again. You've created a legacy. You're a Hall of Famer. You don't need to do anything else in your career. But having gone through this camp, and again, I know the disappointment of not getting to fight on Saturday, but in the back of your head, is there still I got to get at least one more now because you went through this camp, you did all this, and it seemed like, judging by, again, I know social media isn't real life, but it seemed like you were having fun, you were enjoying getting ready for this fight. So in the back of your head, is there still parties I got to get one more, at least one more?
Yeah, there is, man. There is that part of me that's saying I got to get one more because, Damon, I just feel so dang good. I feel so good mentally, physically speaking. My enthusiasm is there like it never was before, and or hasn't been in a long time. I can't say never like before, but it's back in a way that I didn't expect, I should say. And I'm just truly enjoying it. I'm enjoying every single aspect of it, and it feels good to wake up every day and have your day surrounded about around what you're going to do to train your body so you can punch somebody in the face.
Yeah, and it's even better when you get a chance to punch Rampage in the face, right?
Yeah. Oh man, it's even better when you can do that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I know you saw the interest. Like I know you saw the interest there when this got announced.
Yeah.
Like when we first talked about it, months ago, and then when it actually got announced, the date and everything got announced. Like you saw the buzz, you saw people getting excited about it. So the interest was real. There was no faking that. Like the interest was real. It's just unfortunate it didn't happen this weekend. But like I said, come on, somebody out there's got to step up. Like one of these companies out there, how would they not want to promote you and Rampage on a fight card and get it done? Sooner than later. Again, I know you kind of in a way you got to shut things down. You can't just keep training for nothing. But hopefully one of these companies steps up, month, maybe 6 weeks from now, or whatever, and they say let's get it done because it's a main event, but it's a big fight no matter where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, man. I feel like one of these promoters, these promotions like Misfits or something like that with Jake Paul, I think it'd be a great fight on the undercard or whatever, wherever they want to put us, but it's gonna be a good fight. People want to see it, and it's gonna be something that people will remember. Rampage is one of those fighters that we match up so well. He's got a lot of power. I got the speed, and it's just an interesting thing to see, how that translates right now. You know what I'm saying? How that translates right now, and have things even off a little bit. Does he still got that crazy power? So it's going to be very interesting to see when it does happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember that, like this rivalry dates back to the Ultimate Fighter. I don't know if you saw recently the new season. It's got Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen
Yeah.
stepping in there, and I love that they're doing that. And I'm like, man, maybe we could get Rampage and Rashad back for like a Ultimate Fighter reunion show or something. Because like I love that they're going outside the box and I'm like guys who have to fight each other at the end. How is Chael and DC not going to be great television? Imagine you and
Right.
Rampage going back in for another season. Like how much fun would that be?
I know, that would be really fun, man. It's been 25 years, right? 25 years since they started the Ultimate Fighter, and it's crazy. Or was it 25 or 20 years? Was it 20
I
years?
think it's 20
Yeah,
years. Yeah, 20 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
20 years,
20
20
years.
years,
20 years. Yeah.
20 years since they started the Ultimate Fighter, and just even thinking about that had me just, just in just disbelief, just because I feel like it was just the other day when I was still competing and doing the Ultimate Fighter and going through the whole thing. So to look back and see 20 years later, and you know what I'm saying, and seeing DC and Chael and those guys, and because I got a chance to go back on the show and just kind of get a look at those guys, and it's truly something special.
Yeah, I still always remember, man, the finals, Rashad versus the Hillbilly Heartthrob, Brad.
Yeah, that Joker was big, man. When he got a hold of me, oh my God. Oh my I couldn't believe, like damn, you talking about being in shock. Like I was like, I felt him during training, but when we had to fight, he grabbed a hold of my neck, and at that very moment I knew I was not a heavyweight.
It's wild thinking about like, everything you did in your light heavyweight career. Now you do see, like, obviously, again, Jon Jones, the guy you're very familiar with, went up and won at heavyweight. But it's so weird to think about you as a heavyweight now because you were legitimately built to be a light heavyweight. But like that in that day, and Brad was such a big guy, and it just seems like night and day. Like we knew, like I think we talked about even during that finale back in the day. Like you knew you were going down to light heavyweight, but that was just the season of heavyweights.
Yeah, absolutely. I was surprised I made it that far, to be honest. I fought every fight like it was my last fight. And eventually it just took me to the finals and took me to win the fight. But, it's crazy when I think about just how big those guys were and looking at those guys going into the house and Dana White and everybody looking at me like I had no chance at all. And I just kept beating everybody, and they were looking at me like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Is it still impressive to see the guys who have been able to make that transition up to heavyweight though? Because like I mean I think like I
Yeah,
don't think DC's a good example because I think DC was always a heavyweight. He just cut a lot of weight to get to light heavyweight. He only did it
right.
because of Kane. He didn't want to fight Kane, and I understood that. But like
Yeah,
John going up made sense because I remember when I met John the first time, I was like, how in the hell does this guy cut to 205 pounds? Like I'm 6'3", he's taller than me. I'm like, what is going on here? So like John was built for heavyweight, but I'm always amazed to see these guys from 205 go up and actually find a lot of success. I mean, I know John is maybe a different case because of who he is, but it's not easy to do, man. These guys at heavyweight
no,
are monsters.
it really isn't, especially when you feel the heavyweight power, right? It's something that is just different. Like the frequency is not as much, the speed may not be there, but then some of these heavyweights now they're like anomalies. You got a guy like Tom Aspinall who moves like a freaking middleweight, and then he still can wrestle like crazy. He's got not one hit knockout power. He's got coherent combinations, and he's not just he's a dope ass fighter. So that's the scale of heavyweight now, and it's just interesting to see how the heavyweight division moved from one from where guys were not the most athletic to some of the most athletic guys in the division or in the UFC are at heavyweight, and we've seen that with Francis and Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall and Serial Gone. I mean, I could just go on and on talking about the athleticism that has graced the heavyweight ranks in the UFC in the last few years. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to see John and Tom this year?
You know, I hope so, but here's the thing. Like, I'm kind of torn about it, right? Like, I feel like the part of me, the fan side of me, definitely want to see it. I want to see it for sure. But the other part of me, who's like, you know, very impressed with what Jon Jones was able to do, want to see him go out on top and not even have to, because here's the thing about it, like, there's always going to be somebody, right? You know what I'm saying? He beats Tom Aspinall. People like, yeah, there's this new guy. You know what I'm saying? So there's always going to be that one last dragon to vanquish, and a part of me, you know, can respect them for not taking a fight, but then another part of me is just like, man, you better step the fuck up and beat this boy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of mixed about it, to be honest.
It's funny. I actually said this is going back a little ways, but I said, people are so excited about the Tom Aspinall fight, but you're absolutely right. Cause 2 years ago, all we wanted to see was the Ngannou fight. Now no one's even talking about Ngannou. It's all about Aspinall. So that's how quickly the sport has moved on, where like Ngannou's an afterthought. Now we just want to see Aspinall. Right. If he goes out, if John goes out and beats Aspinall, which I think we talked about this last year. He's not afraid of anybody. He's not afraid to talk to Tom Aspinall. But if he goes out there and beat Tom Aspinall, you're going to hear the chorus of people say, Tom was never that good. Now you got to fight Cyril Gane. You got to fight this guy. So it never ends. It never really stops.
It never ends, man. And, here's the thing, though, that's a sure thing. Eventually, time will get you. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what, no matter who you are, John has been very blessed inside the octagon, and he's been able to really remain undefeated and look good doing it, despite his close fights. But eventually, you hang in a barbershop long enough, you will get a haircut. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get clipped one time. So, I'm on the page of you know what, man, you did it. Just chill out. But I mean, I don't know Jon Jones now, and I don't know if there's a part of him that needs this in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like there's sometimes that you can be in something for so long that it just becomes so much a part of who you are. Rediscovering yourself in a different frame outside of it is maybe not something that you're ready to explore, and maybe not something you're ready to give up. But it's I don't know Jon Jones right now, so I don't really know how he, if that's even a narrative that that's even in his concern.
Yeah, who is Jon Jones if he's not the greatest fighter in the world, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
how does he adapt to life when he's now retired, or now we're calling this guy the greatest guy in the world? Like, yeah, fighting is an identity. Like you worked very hard to create an identity outside of fighting, which is why I said I know you had to kind of shut everything down for this Rampage fight, but not everyone does that, and you know that's true in the sport. When your whole identity is around fighting, who are you when that's gone?
Yeah, and Damon, to your point, I went through hell. I went through literal hell, just rediscovering who I was, and a lot of questioning myself, questioning decisions, reliving some painful memories, and decisions that I made, and all kinds of things that just a lot of soul searching. And some people are not up for that. Some people find it hard to do that, and they find themselves soothing themselves with some kind of, habit that ends up being a deteriorating factor for them health wise. So um, it would just be, you know, I just hope for him that he's able to make that transition because, you know, the problems outside the octagon, they take on a different complexion when you're no longer a pay-per-view star. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, 100%. Real quick before I let you go, Rashad, it's funny. I was doing an interview last week with Coach Saif Saud from down at Fortis MMA, and he was telling me about his training days back at Jackson's, and we were talking. I was telling him the good old days when I used to just call Jackson's, and like Greg would get on the phone and put you on the phone, and put Keith on the phone, put Joey Villasenor on the phone. Like that's how he did interviews back in the day. And he was telling me a story about one of his fights where he got you to show up for the weigh-ins because the promoter said he would pay more if Rashad Evans was at the weigh-ins. And he was telling a great story. And I was like, he's like, Rashad showed up, and he's like, and Rashad would always buy me dinner when I needed because I had no money. And I was like, that sounds like Rashad Evans. That's the kind of guy Rashad Evans was. But he was telling me that story. He's like, the promoter said he'd give me like an extra $5,000 or extra grand or whatever if Rashad showed up to the weigh-ins. And he basically told you, and you're like, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah, he told me, man, and that's one thing I respected about him. Saif was just always an honest dude, and always up front. A hard worker, and that's why I cornered him. I'm like, you know what, man, he had so much talent, and he wanted it so bad, and I just enjoyed having him on my team. He was one of those dudes, and that was the thing about it. Like we had a lot of stars on the team, but we had like a lot of unsung hero guys that you'll never know. Guys like Damasio Page, Joey Villasenor. We had so many guys that were just salts of the earth. Tate Fletcher, all these guys that we had that really, really made the team what it was from a character standpoint, and it was really the soul of our team in a sense. Just because, outside of the lights, cameras, and action, we were all brothers, and there was no star amongst us. You know what I'm saying? Like we were just, we were just all brothers, just making it. Some people had the shine, and if you had the shine, you looked out for your brother who didn't have the shine because you understood that, the spotlight, nobody owned the spotlight, and eventually the spotlight was going to move from you. So while you had it, you might as well make somebody else shine as well.
Absolutely. I still geek out, man. Every time I see Tate on like Star Wars, he's doing movie stuff. He does a lot of movie stuff now. And I'm like, every time I see Tate on there, I'm like, Tate Fletcher, I know Tate Fletcher. And I see Keith pops up in a lot of stuff too. Keith Jardine pops up in a lot of stuff too.
Oh, yeah. Keith Jardine is another one. I mean, I owe so much to Keith Jardine. Keith Jardine, it had the biggest impact on my career, from the Ultimate Fighter show when we were on the same team. He was like pretty much my coach, showing me so many things that he learned from Greg to help me even get ready to make it to the finals. And then after the show was over, I went out there and trained with them, and I stayed with him whenever I went out there. And, he was just one of those guys that really showed me what brotherhood is about, because it wasn't about, getting a position and trying to find a way to, to be better than me. He really wanted me and was pushing me to be better than him. And for me, I never even experienced nothing like that. It was just love that I just didn't understand. But, he was a good brother in that, man.
Absolutely. Well, Rashad, man, we could reminisce all day, tell stories. When he was telling that story about you, I was like, oh my gosh, what a great story. I said, that definitely sounds like Rashad. But man, like I said, I appreciate you doing this. Hopefully whether it's this week, next week, 2 weeks from now, hopefully somebody steps up and gets you in Rampage in a spot because you put in a hard camp. I know you still want to fight. I know the world wants to see it, so hopefully we all get to see it. And hopefully next time we talk, it's getting rebooked. But I appreciate you doing this today. And like I said, hopefully good things happen in the near future. We get you and Rampage in there so you can punch that old guy in the head.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Damon.